Okay, so Jason and I, for our last lesson, did Rover Saves Christmas, and we're going to continue with this because we did read a little bit in the beginning about 2 weeks ago about this book, and he's been reading some at home. So we're going to go ahead and start off where we finished, which is on chapter 4. And because I know he's in 4th grade and he really should be reading silently, but we've been working on reading because he does struggle a little bit with reading. He's about right where he should be with age, maybe a little below, but we're going to have him read aloud so that way he can really understand and really get a good practice on reading. Okay, Jace, so let's start off with chapter 4 and go ahead and read aloud to me from the beginning.
Chapter 4, Warning. Wear gloves and a hat when you're reading this chapter because it takes place in Lapland in the north of Finland and it's very cold there. Please, Rudolph, said Santa. No, man, said Ralph. No can do. They were in the barn behind Santa's house and workshop. Outside, elves on snowmobiles and sleds pulled by husky dogs charged across the yard. They were bringing sacks full of just made presents to all the sleighs lined up in a long row. The reindeer were harnessed and very excited. This was their big night, but inside the barn, it was very quiet.
Okay, pause, Jace. So when you read this, I really want you to work on the punctuation and really read that smoothly. And then just make sure that you're really enunciating that punctuation. So what is this punctuation called right there?
A
comma. So when you read that, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to skip over? Pause. Exactly. So I want you to reread that sentence very smoothly, not too fast, but not too slow, and just read this sentence right here, clear to that period, and then pause for me.
But inside the barn, it was very quiet.
Okay, good. That was better. Now, if I were to read that sentence, this is what it would sound like. But inside the barn, it was very quiet. It's kind of like leading into a mystery, you see? Okay, go ahead and continue.
Santa was wearing a brand new suit. It was red, of course, a beautiful bright red because it was so new. He had loved the old suit, the most famous suit in the world, but it had ripped when he was bending over to put his boots on. Put on his boots. You need a new suit, said Mrs. Claus, as she looked at Santa's underpants sticking out of the big hole at the back of his trousers.
Good job.
I need a new bum. Santa laughed. This one's too big. But Santa wasn't laughing now. The suit was supposed to make anyone who wore it or saw it happy. But it wasn't working.
Pause real quick. Do you notice how when you read that, you put in a little emotion with it? Okay, go ahead.
Santa looked sad and worried. It was Christmas Eve, and time was flying. He had a sleigh full of presents and a cranky old reindeer who wouldn't pull it.
Who do you think the cranky reindeer is?
Rover.
Have we introduced Rover really yet?
No.
So who do you think the reindeer is? Who was kind of causing problems? One of the main reindeers in the beginning of the story.
Rudolph.
Rudolph, yep. He should.
Oh. He should have been in New Zealand by now, climbing down and back up chimneys. And then there was Australia and Papua New Guinea and Borneo, the Philippines, Japan, and then China. It was nighttime. In all those places, the end of Christmas Eve, millions and millions of sleeping children, all of them waking up in a few hours. And what would they find? Santa was very worried. If the presents weren't there, that would be the end of it.
Okay, I want you to restart if the presents weren't there and read that real smoothly.
If the presents weren't there, that would be the end of it.
Okay, go ahead.
No presents, no Santa. That was how it worked. All those kids all over the world would stop believing in him.
Okay, pause. So what would you do if Santa didn't bring presents?
I'd be sad.
Sad? Yeah, do you think all the kids would be sad?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's gonna happen?
River's gonna come in.
You think River's gonna save?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
The magic would die, and Santa would just be a very old man with nothing left to do. Santa was terrified. Come on, Rudy, he said. We do it every year.
So pause. Who do you think Rudy is?
Rudolph.
Do you think that is his nickname from Santa? What does Rudy look like in this picture right here?
He's a hillbilly.
He looks kind of like a hillbilly. Why does he look like a hillbilly? Tell them.
Because he has a headband and wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. What is he drinking?
Hot cocoa.
I think hot cocoa. Does he look very enthused about going out for Christmas?
Santa probably called him Rudy because he's not flying on the sleigh.
Yeah. All right, go ahead and start right here.
No, man. Rudolph was wearing his sunglasses, and he had a bandana tied around his antlers. By the way, the bandana had been given to him by a very old singer called Bruce Springsteen.
Good job.
Springsteen. Oh, come on, Rudy, said Santa. There are millions of children waiting for us. We have to give them their presents, but that's it, man. That's it, man, said Rudolph. That's all it's about these days. Presents, presents, presents. They're spoiled.
Yeah, it's just kind of like Rudolph's kind of talking like a hippie. He's kind of like, yeah, man, they're spoiled.
They're spoiled, man. Oh, what?
No, I was telling you where. I didn't know if you lost your spot.
They're spoiled, man. The kids these days, they don't even say thanks.
Okay, we're going to pause. I'm going to read the rest of this and have him listen, only because we're running out a little bit of time. And I want to kind of show you guys what we're going to do for the lesson to finish this off. Okay. Yes, they do, said Santa. They don't even mean it, said Rudolph. Don't be so cranky, Rudy, said Santa. Look, man, next year, maybe. It's a midlife thing. I need to rest. Rudolph lay down in the straw. Santa patted him. Rudolph felt very hot, and the world-famous nose was even redder than usual. Uh-oh. Santa knew. You have the flu, Rudy, said Santa. Sorry to let you down, man, said Rudolph. Don't worry, said Santa, and Rudolph closed his eyes and slept. Santa put a blanket over his old friend's back. Then he went over to the sleigh. The presents were packed and ready in the sacks of different sizes. There were other sleighs already in the sky, all around the world, waiting to transfer more presents onto Santa's sleigh. All those children to be visited, all those countries, all those chimneys, and here he was stuck in the northern tip of Lapland, thousands of miles from where he should have been on his way to New Zealand. There were other reindeer. They were good, hard-working reindeer, but not good enough. Rudolph was the strongest and fastest. He was the best at reading the stars, at finding the way as he pulled the sleigh over the clouds. He was the best at parking on rooftops. He had the lightest hoofs and the hoofs of a ballet dancer. His hoofs on slates never made a sound, and they never went through straw roofs. And he sang all night as they flew from country to country. Rudolph, the coolest reindeer, you'll go down in history. Rudolph was the best, but Rudolph was asleep and sick, and the famous nose looked like a tiny lighthouse in the middle of a very big ocean. Santa patted Rudolph. There was only one hope. Santa knew what was what. He kept an eye on all the kids in the world and on their parents and pets. His elves sent reports to him. They wrote postcards, letters, and emails. They sent carrier pigeons, St. Bernard dogs, and even an owl they borrowed from a kid called Potter. So, Santa knew, there was only one animal out there who could replace Rudolph, a dog, and his name was Rover. Alright, so that's the end of chapter 4. Put our bookmark in here. So for the lesson, we talked about 2 prompts in here, and I'll go over those in the lesson plan. But as far as the lesson that we're going to do for this, so we're going to be working on a character chart. Okay, it's kind of hard to see. So in the character chart, we're going to name a character, which one of the main characters in this chapter was Rudolph. And then we're going to talk about how we think the character looks based off of the description in the book, and then how the character acted. So we kind of got some pretty good information in this chapter, and I kind of wanted to do it based on the chapter and not the whole book so far of what we've read. And then we're going to also do a plot diagram that also is just going to be based on the chapter instead of the whole book. So we're going to talk about the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and then the resolution. So we're going to go ahead and do that while we have a couple minutes with you. Alright, Jason, I'm going to go ahead and scoot up here. Do a pencil. Okay, so what is the name of the character we're going to do? Rudolph. Just spell it as best as you can. Okay, and then how do you think the character looks? What was his description in the book based on his looks? What did they say in that picture? What he was wearing?
A bandana and sunglasses.
Yeah, let's go ahead and write that down. Good job. And then how does the character act? So what was he kind of acting like? What would you say?
Like a weirdo.
Okay, so what did Santa give his description of? He said his nose was very
Red.
and he was very
Hot.
hot, so he was
Sick.
and he had the
Flu.
Yep. So how was he acting? Was he acting Yeah, he was acting down, but was he acting normal Rudolph or kind of out of the box Rudolph?
Out of the box.
Yeah.
Rudolph.
So we can kind of say that Rudolph seemed sick and not the normal, right? Oh, excuse me.
Oops.
That's okay. Okay, so we're running a little over time, so we're going to finish the plot diagram and kind of talk about the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution, and then I'll post what his replies were for that in my lesson plan. So thank you all for watching, and we hope that, Christmas is saved by Rover.